So I've been thinking about some things lately, and some of the things that I don't understand are how much money we spend in this world to pollute the world, to make it a rougher place. A couple of the things that I'm looking at currently are the United States currently spends $300 billion a year keeping people in jail, making criminals, making people less than, so that we can have what, a less than and a more than. Um, there are currently people in this world that are spending a life sentence in jail in the United States for possession of marijuana. Now, currently, marijuana is kind of legal in half the states, 37 from what I understand. Um, but there's still people in jail for a life sentence of possession of marijuana. And I don't understand, where do we draw the line? Why is it marijuana is illegal, alcohol is not? I don't see that there's a very big difference between the two. To me, it just seems like a line. At some point, some people tried to draw a line, and we called it prohibition, right? And then we did the same thing with marijuana. We're a very rigid, structured society, and we think that penalizing somebody, hurting somebody, is the right way to justify a potential hurt. I mean, that's really what putting people in jail for shit is. Like, we didn't actually know that they did the thing. There are some people in this world that need to be put in jail. Don't get me wrong, but as a person who's been in jail, I don't understand the purpose. It doesn't really. For those that choose to make better of it, I tried to. Got out, went straight into college, taught at a college. So, but I'm, I guess, a different breed than most of the people that are in there. We'll just give you for instance, one of my roommates, one time, I worked in the kitchen, I worked out on the weight pad, I worked in the library, I just everything I could do to stay busy. At one point, I had a roommate who would get up in the morning, go to breakfast, come back, go to sleep till noon, get up, go to lunch, come back, watch TV until dinner time, come back, stay again in the room, watch TV until he passes out at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then get up and do it all over again. And you're paying for that. You're paying for somebody to live in such standards. I mean, when we think about jail, it's a horrible thing. And it is a horrible thing. It's pretty scary. But if you're not scared of it anymore, if you've already done that, if you've already been there, then it's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, the worst thing in the world is what's going on in your own head, right? I don't know about you, but me personally, depression is a horrible thing but it's based on the chaos that we've created in this world. So I was just doing a little bit of looking online, a couple of statistics. $300 billion annually we keep people in prison. 934 billion on war. And $378 billion a year on interest on our loans that we have from other countries. That means out of the total $2.966 trillion discretionary spending that the USA has every year, they spend $1.6 billion on war, fighting bad people, and interest on loans. I mean, I don't know. Our taxes are pretty high, but they're not the highest in the world. We get some good stuff out of it. Okay. One of the things I don't understand is why we don't look around the world, see things that are being done right, and kind of make them part of who we are. You know, one of the things they do in Japan, there's a lot of people living in Japan, tiny little island. They have apparently made an airport in the middle of the fucking ocean. They did it with like concrete pylons and a whole lot of dirt, and did some engineering and built the thing on it. But because there's so many people living in such a small space, they can't really handle the world being too messy. Because the messier things are, the angrier people get. So they clean up their world, and one of the ways they do that is they start early. Kids in school have to help a little bit every day cleaning the school. So they get out the brushes and they get out the mops and they get out the whatever, and the kids are part of preparing the food. And we say in this country, oh, well, that's child labor laws. Well, yeah, but if you just make it an hour a day that we're asking them to help, we're not driving them as slaves. It shouldn't be that way. It should just be, hey, come on, it's cleanup time. All of us are responsible for cleaning up the world that we live in, and we should all be responsible for the world that we live in. One of the things I found in life that's kind of interesting is in Vermont, in a couple of states in the United States, we have bottle deposit. Bottle deposit apparently works 98% of the time. 98% of the bottles that go out come back. And one of the things that does is that keeps our world a little bit cleaner. And that's a nice thing, right? If you don't have people that are taking care of the world, if you don't have people that are cleaning up shit, it's going to get dirty, because you and I know that the guy driving down the road and chucking whatever he's chucking out the window, granted, it's only one thing, but if you add up those one things, it turns into a lot of things. I worked at a McDonald's one year, and you would not believe the number of cigarette butts on the fucking ground after wintertime. And we clean them all up. Yeah, okay, whatever. But there was like 1,000 or more cigarette butts sitting on the ground that we had to clean up. I mean, probably multiple thousands. I told the kid that I had cleaned it up. I said, if I can go out there and not find 100 cigarette butts when you're done, you'll get a free meal out of it. And he did not get a free meal out of it because he's a kid and he's lazy. And he didn't look. He just went out there and did what he felt was enough and then gave up. And I walked outside and I pointed him to the pile. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here, man? Do you care about the world that you live in? Is putting somebody in jail really the right answer? Is not half the people that are in there because they're depressed, they're alone, they're sad. And if you look into yourself a little bit, I think you'll find that, like me, you've done some things that are wrong in your life, some bad things. Not really bad, maybe, but we justify them and we say, oh, well, I was only speeding. Well, speeding in your mind is nothing. In my mind is nothing. But there are some people that speeding is like, it's an issue. Abortion. I don't mean to point it out, but like, that's a person's choice. You shouldn't necessarily have a say in it. Because you don't know what's going on in their world. Like, they're the ones that has to deal with the emotional, for the rest of their lives, they have to deal with the emotional strain that gets put on. There was a child growing inside this person, and then there isn't. And they killed it. Isn't that enough torture? Do we then have to put the person in jail? Suicide. Suicide is against the law. Most states. From what I understand, it's not in Vermont. I listened to a thing on the radio once. It was like they were talking about this guy committed suicide. But it was to ease the burden on his family. It wasn't. He was going to cost his family $500,000 in the next 3 months, and he couldn't do it. He was going to die in 3 months, whether he did all the stuff or not. So, as a way to avoid all of that and tell his wife he loves her and set her up in the best place that he could leave her, he opted out. I mean, is that really the worst thing? You know, he had his family come over and he said goodbye and he said, I love you. And he went to sleep. They took this drug that just kind of knocked him out and put him to sleep. And he was gone. Is that really, do we, in some states, it's against the law to try and kill yourself. How is that anybody's business but yours? Really? I mean, okay, you affect your family, you affect your friends, but if they understand where you're coming from, and I mean, be honest with yourself. If they don't know you well enough to know that you need this for whatever reason, I mean, if you're psychologically insane and depressed to the point that you want to kill yourself, I mean, maybe you should get in a program, and then if it stays that way for a certain amount of time, they say, okay, I'm sorry, well, bye. But then the people that know you know that you went through that thing, and now they're not so disturbed because they know you went through it. They know you tried, you know? Or you're sick, and you're sick to the point of dying. You've got some kind of cancer, and it's going to cost your family $500,000 in the next couple of weeks. Maybe you should, you know, and if it's okay with you and it's okay with her, I mean, why should it be the government's dictation that you can't kill yourself and we're going to put you in jail? Dude, there was a guy in jail who wanted to kill himself. He was surrounded at all points in time by 6 guards. Anytime they brought him out of the room, they wrapped him in a bed. You know, the beds are big and soft, and they put 1 or 2 around him, and they wrapped it with rope so that he couldn't run himself into a window and kill himself. Now, granted, maybe that's just acting out, but that guy cost you more than $40,000 a year to keep in jail. That guy cost you $70,000 a year to keep in jail, and he wants to die. Why can't we just let him? You know, is it, oh, well, he's acting out, we can't respond to that. We have to protect him and keep him from killing himself because otherwise we would be somehow criminal in allowing us to allow. I mean, why can't this be a fucking conversation that the guy can say, listen, can you just kill me? And he signs on the dotted line, and okay. And he walks into the other room and stab him with whatever, and it's done. Or have him drink whatever. I mean, it's really not that hard to kill yourself. Like, there are numerous chemicals that we use on a daily basis, toxins that we pollute our world with, that we could just, boom, it's gone. In fact, you could kill yourself, what is it? Nitrogen. You kill yourself with nitrogen because the air is apparently still like 73% nitrogen. So our bodies don't have a sensor to tell us when there's too much nitrogen. And that's why actually the laughing gas, they say they've got this doctor who knows how much laughing gas to give you. You gotta become a doctor to use the shit, man. But they sell it you can get it at a balloon store. Like, but nobody tells us these things. You could destroy the world. You could create an earthquake. You would just have to dig a deep hole, mount the thing into the rock, have it attached to the rock, and put a vibration in it. I mean, like, frequency is... There's 4.5 trillion pieces of plastic, probably more at this point, in the ocean. 4.5 trillion pieces. Now, the pieces are so small that they break themselves into little pieces, and then there's not little pieces. They found a whale with 65 pounds of plastic in its mouth. It couldn't swallow it. It probably had more in its belly, but 65 pounds of plastic in its mouth. It washed up on shore because it was starving to death. And it couldn't feed itself because its mouth was full of plastic. And it doesn't know how to let it go because, I mean, like most animals that swim in the ocean, they swim in one direction. They can't swim in both directions. They swim in one direction, and what a whale does to catch food is it opens its giant fucking mouth, and it reaches up and it catches a whole bunch of things that it thinks is fish, and it closes its mouth, and then it tries to consume what's in its mouth. But in this case, it's plastic, not fish. 65 pounds of plastic in its mouth. It died. They found a shark with like 12 plastic bags in its stomach, and it died. It washed up on shore dead because food couldn't get through the plastic bags that were in its stomach. Why can't we have a bottle deposit law on everything? Everything that goes out has to come back, and we have to deal with it in a proper manner. You know what they do with the dump? They dig a big hole in the ground. Maybe there was a hole already. They layer it with plastic because the stuff that we're going to be dumping in it is bad for the environment. And we're going to dump a whole bunch of stuff in it until it gets to a certain size, and then they wrap the plastic around the top of it to keep it all together so that it doesn't affect the ecology of the environment around. And recently they've come to using that as a natural gas source. Apparently, the waste that we give off does digest itself a little. And so we turn it into gas and we use it as gas to fuel our buses in the city. I mean, I guess, okay. But if what we're putting on the ground is that bad for the world, maybe we ought to be thinking about the things that we're doing in a way that changes the world, right? So recently, some of the things that have happened because of the computer age, because of the computer age that happened in our world, there have been a bunch of companies that have been created out of essentially nothing, right? Uber, at least in the United States, I don't know about the world, Uber is the largest cab company, taxi cab company in the world. And they don't actually own any cars. So somehow they're a cab company that doesn't own cars. Okay. Amazon is the biggest store, except they don't own any storefront. And so there have been some things that have changed, and they've changed in major ways. There are people that get paid to show their butt on the internet. Maybe they probably show more than their butt, but there are people that get paid to masturbate. There are people that get paid to just look pretty. There was this chick, she was making 6 figures. She goes around the world and videotapes herself in really cool places, and people pay her money. And somehow she's making 6 figures. That means she's making over $100,000 a year because she's pretty. We live in a world that's different than it was 20 or 30 years ago. And there are answers to every question in ways that were not available in the last generation. So, I mean, we play video games. We got computers. We got, I mean, all of the information at the tip of our fingers. There's a kid, I watched a TED Talk once. There's this kid who, he's 14 years old, and he invented a way to test for prostate cancer. One of his uncles died of prostate cancer, and he got kind of sad about it. And then one of the things he did was he responded by creating, because apparently the testing for pancreatic cancer is not very good, costs a lot of money. Doctors don't suggest it until we're basically all the way there. You know, we're class 3 prostate cancer. You're gonna die soon anyways. Let's do the test. This kid made a test. He's 14 years old. With his help of his science teacher and the internet, made a test for pancreatic cancer that tested for a certain chemical that cost 3 pennies. 3 pennies, and it was like 7 times more accurate than the old test was. So I guess what I'm saying is the possibilities are endless with what we've created, with what's in your head, with what's in my head. We're all geniuses in a way, one way or another, that you're a different kind of genius than I am. Some of you are into math, some of you are into science, some of you are into history. You know, we're all a little focus driven based on what our history was, what interests us, how our bodies work, whatever the reason that drives our focus. And I think there's going to be a lot of answers coming out pretty soon, I hope, because we're getting to a point in time in our world where construction can be automated now, right? Like they have 3D printers for houses. They have 3D printers for hearts. They can print a 3D heart now, and it functions like out of your own genetic DNA, so they can inject it in your body, put it in your body, and it'll function, and your body won't reject it. I don't think they can do it with the other organs. Hearts are fairly simple. It's a pump, and so it's a muscle. It just pumps and pumps and pumps. That's what it does. And so if we know what it does and we can mimic muscle, I mean, they can print meat. They print meat. 3D printers for meat. I don't know if I want to have that stuff, but we're living in a world where these days I find this thing online. Apparently, they keep track of how many animals they killed in the United States, and but butcher shops, big butcher, whatever, and it's something like 9.6 million cows a year, 188 million pigs, and I think it was like 376 million chickens, birds of some sort, like turkeys or chickens. That's in the United States, 376 million chickens a year. I mean, it just seems a little off to me. But, we got a lot of people. We got to feed a lot of people. A lot of people cost a lot of money, cost a lot of meat. But, man, that's like... That's a lot of birds, man. I eat my fair share. I'm not dissing. But that's a lot of birds. 376 million chickens. What? Oh, yeah. And there's a tally. They keep a tally and they hand it to the president, whatever, so he can have the information at his fingertips. How many animals did we kill this year, anyways? Oh, there it is. It's on a sheet of paper. It's actually a PDF. It's online somewhere. I've found it a couple of times. I think it's funny. Other people don't think it's so much funny, but, I'm a little different. We're all a little different. Too many people choose not to love themselves, I think, for one reason or another. We hurt. We've been hurt. We hurt somebody else. I think we're all just doing the best we can with the information that we had or have. There are some of us that are intentionally not out for helping other people. Maybe those people should be put in jail. But I think most of us are well-meaning, I mean, what's a person that's been to jail, right? It's a person, just like all the rest of us. If you grew up in their situation, you'd probably be in the same spot. Think about growing up in the inner city. Like, you don't have a dad, you got a mom, and she works 2 jobs, and you get to go home and take care of yourself. And at some point you see friends that are making money, doing drugs, selling drugs. Maybe they're not doing drugs, maybe they're just selling drugs, but they're making a lot of money. And it looks nice. And hey, I can't get a job at a grocery store because there's child labor laws. So I can get a job selling dope, right? Because my buddy is going to hook me up selling dope and I can make some money. Well, why don't we allow child labor? I mean, shouldn't there be a limit? Let's say we could say, okay, there's a limit based on age. I would say the best way to do it was based on age. When you're this age, you can only work this much. When you're this age, you can only work that much, right? I mean, why not? As you progress older in age, you can work a little more because you're trying to better yourself. You're trying to make more money. You're trying to, and no, we don't allow ourselves to work. Okay, so they get a job selling dope. And it's a private business. I mean, when I was a kid, I sold candy in school. Principal didn't like it very much, but I sold candy. But I sold candy. It's just candy. It's not like it's drugs. I sold candy and soda. Like I thought it was pretty well intentioned, you know. They said, "Oh, well, you can't sell candy in school. You can't sell anything in school unless the profits go to a non-profit, like a charity." I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, man. I can't even. This is an education for me. I don't know how to get along with people. I really didn't, and this helps me learn. Like, I don't know why I did it. It was a thing that felt like the right thing to do. You know, it was fun. It was fun. You make a lot of money. Dude, there were days I would come home and would pull all the change and there was pockets full of change. Like, come home, spread out all the change and like count it up. I would spread it out. I would look at it. I would guess how much it was. Twice I got it right on the penny. I got it right. That was kind of weird. There are answers out there. There are answers to questions that we don't even understand. Part of the problem we're being restricted by is industry. Industry, it's fixed. I mean, they spent a lot of money building that industry, and so they want to stay in industry. You know, the more things they can make, the more widgets they can make out of their tool set, the more money they make. The more money they make, the better off they are. That's, you know, any of us. But there has to be a better way to make the things in a recyclable fashion, a way to keep track of the shit, like a bottle redemption law, a way to keep our world clean, like teaching children in school that you need to take care of your world a little bit. Because if you don't, nobody else is going to, and then you're going to be living in the slums of New York City. Not, I don't know anything about the apologize offends anybody, but how you imagine the slums of the world are. So part of the law system in our world is taking care of our world. Well, why don't we take care of our world a little bit? Create some laws that are a little nicer, you know, something like we're taking care of things instead of beating people up for being who they are. Why can't we send them to therapy? Why can't we something? There has to be something that we can do that is better than sending them to their room, because that's essentially what jail is. It's go to your room. I don't have time to deal with you. Go to your room. Since when did that ever work? Right? Kids learn to read. Kids learn to enjoy being in their room. These days, kids got electronics. Okay, send me in my room, man. Like, is it really that big a deal? I got a TV. We had a TV in our jail cell. Yeah, we bought the TV with money that was earned off commissary, which the people that live there, friends, family, relatives, send money. You can actually work if you work in the garden, or you work in the kitchen, or you work in the license plate manufacturing plant, you know, like in the movies or whatever. They pay you a certain amount of money based on the importance of your job, right? And it started out at like $0.25 an hour. You know, I was working in the dish room for $0.25 an hour, and then I was front line for 50 cents an hour, and then I was head chef, man, for $1 an hour. I worked 50 hours a week, as much as I could. I worked out on the weight pad all the time. Like, I took college level math class, and hence got into college shortly thereafter. So you can make it better, but most of them aren't. And think about what happens if you are around a certain mindset. I mean, they say you are what you eat, but you are what you eat doesn't just mean what you feed yourself, like food wise. We're also talking what goes into your mind, what goes into your body, how much effort you put into the world affects it affects who you are, right? If I'm 1,000% focused on writing and I literally write every day, you'll become a writer. I mean, you are what you eat. You feed yourself what you become. And I think part of the problem with this country is we feed ourselves with government spending of $500 million on interest on our loans, and half a trillion, excuse me, 378 billion dollars on interest on our loans, $934 billion on military spending, and $300 billion annually to prosecute, police, and imprison people. It's $300 billion with B. That's a big number. Now, a lot of people work in that industry. Okay, fine. But a lot of people worked in farms back in the beginning. Like, there are new jobs we've just discussed. There, like Uber is making, you know, making a lot of money being a business that never existed years ago, and it actually makes more entrepreneurial people that are running their own little businesses that have cars that do taxi cab stuff. And I watched the video, and the guy drives all around the city, and he works for Uber and he works for Lyft, and he makes, you know, as much as any of us would normally make, maybe a little bit better. Of course, that's the way those companies keep it, so that they don't have to, like, nobody gets any bigger. That's one thing I really hate. They pay a living wage, and some people choose to go that way, some people don't, but they pay a living wage, and so that's what people do, because you got to do what you got to do to make ends meet. Sometimes that's selling drugs. Sometimes it's selling candy in school.